When you step out of almost any train station in Japan, one thing nearly always catches your eye. A pachinko parlor. Gambling is supposed to be illegal in this country, so why are these places allowed to operate so openly? Today we are going to uncover how this mysterious presence came to be in Japan and why it became so deeply rooted in a Japanese society. But pachinko is extremely familiar to people in Japan, yet surprisingly few can calmly explain what it actually is. It's often said that pachinko evolved in Japan from a Western game known as a Korinto game, which was introduced to the country long ago. Pachinko resembles a vertical pinball machine. Players turn a small handle to launch tiny metal balls, and when those balls land in certain spots, more balls are released. That's it. A very simple game. But how much money is actually moving within this system? In the most common format known as yonpachi, each ball costs 4 Japanese yen. A machine can fire up to 100 balls per minute, which means that if you don't hit anything, you can lose nearly 20,000 yen in just 1 hour. On the other hand, the rewards can be intense. If you are lucky enough to ride a winning streak, it's possible to walk away with 50,000 to over 100,000 yen in cash within just a few hours. The scale of industry is far larger than most people imagine. At its peak, pachinko generated nearly 30 trillion yen in annual revenue. The number of parlors once exceeded roughly 45,000, and even today, around 7,000 are still operating across Japan. But especially in major cities, pachinko parlors are almost guaranteed to be found right in front of the train stations, with an estimated 6 to 8 million people sleeping regularly in Japan. From a global perspective, it's extremely rare for a recreational game to grow into something so massive and so deeply embedded in everyday life. So how did pachinko evolve into such a powerful industry in Japan? Well, to answer that, we need to trace its origins and look at its history. The origins of pachinko lie in Japan during the chaotic years immediately after World War II. At the time, there was little in the way of entertainment, and people were struggling simply to rebuild their daily lives. In that entertainment, pachinko gained attention as an easy pastime, or something people could enjoy for a short time with very little money. Pachinko also came to play an important role in post-war employment. With unemployment widespread, the growing number of parlors needed staff, effectively providing jobs for people who had lost their livelihood. In fact, the number of pachinko parlors nationwide jumped from 4,800 in 1949 to 45,000 in 1952, as I told you, in just 4 years. This rapid expansion supported local shopping streets and regional economies, allowing pachinko to quickly take root as a form of everyday entertainment in Japan. However, as the number of parlors increased, the value of the prizes they offer rose as well. What began as a simple game gradually turned into an activity where large sums of money were involved. Despite moving closer and closer to what was effectively gambling, the government didn't impose an outright ban, or something that may seem puzzling. So why wasn't pachinko stopped, even though private gambling is illegal in Japan? There are 2 main reasons, basically. The first is that the industry grew too large. Too quickly, especially with tens of thousands of employees and a significant impact on local tax revenues. A sudden crackdown would have caused massive unemployment and economic disruption in Japan. Even if authorities wanted to regulate it, pachinko had already become far too big to shut down. The second reason lies in the deeply rooted social belief at the time. Gambling is evil. Post-war world education in Japan strongly condemned gambling, especially betting for money. Because this value was so widespread, it was politically and extremely difficult for the government to officially legalize pachinko. If politicians openly approved it, they risked being seen as allowing the state to endorse immoral behavior. At the same time, the police, who had long enforced anti-gambling laws, were in no position to say pachinko is gambling, but it's legal. So banning it would cause chaos. Legalizing it would invite moral backlash. By given this dilemma, eliminating the pachinko industry altogether was not an option. As a result, pachinko became something ambiguous, neither banned nor fully legalized in Japan. So in this complicated situation, how did the government and the police choose to deal with pachinko? The answer is deeply influenced by a uniquely Japanese concept, the culture of tatemae. Well, in Japan, privately operated gambling is prohibited by law. So logically, pachinko should also be illegal. And yet, pachinko parlors continue to operate openly across the country. To understand this construction, well, we need to look at uniquely Japanese system known as three-shop method, a form of legality built on tatemae or official pretense. At the heart of the three-shop method is a simple idea. If cash is not handled directly, it's not considered gambling. Pachinko parlors never hand money to players. When someone wins, they only receive prizes. Formally speaking, everything remains within the category of amusement. The next element is the exchange booth. These booths are illegally and physically separate from the pachinko parlor and operate under the pretense that they are simply purchasing items brought in by customers. So players take the prizes they received at the parlor to these booths and exchange them for cash. Behind the scenes, of course, there is also a prize buyer company. The prizes purchased by exchange booths are eventually sent back to the pachinko parlor through this company, completing the loop and organizing the flow of money indirectly. So by separating these three steps, Japan maintained the formal structure in which no cash exchange takes place inside the pachinko parlor itself. So this pursued the official claim that pachinko isn't gambling under the law in Japan. Of course, in reality, this system is extremely close to gambling, honestly. But for a decade, Japan faced a dilemma, as I explained. Banning pachinko outright would have caused serious social and economic disruption, while officially legalizing it would have triggered moral backlash. As a result, the three-shop method has survived as the most practical compromise. While explained like this, it sounds like way to get around the law, isn't it? But however, from a Japanese perspective, few Japanese people see pachinko in this way. With pachinko parlors everywhere in Japan, as I told you, and many users, it's a natural part of Japanese society already. And some of my friends play, and I tried once, but it doesn't feel mine. You know what I mean? Well, in fact, many Japanese know about, the 3-point system I explained, and it has become so widespread and, few even question it. So through this arrangement, pachinko slipped into the gray spaces of society, neither banned nor fully legalized, and gradually evolved into something with its own unique role. And it's precisely this role that helps explain why pachinko is still needed by so many people in Japan today. The reason pachinko has remained so deeply rooted in Japan lies in conditions unique to Japanese society as well. But one of them is the idea that Japan is one of the world's loneliness societies, maybe. So large parties or family gatherings are not a regular part of daily life, which means many people spend a great deal of time alone. In that context, pachinko parlors where no one talks to you and no one interferes have come to function as a safe space for solitude. For many people, it's a place where they can be alone without feeling uncomfortable. And Japan's work culture also plays a major role. Long working hours and constant social pressure leave many people mentally and physically exhausted. With very few places to truly relax between work and home, and the loud sound and bright light of a pachinko parlor forcibly shut down negative thought. People basically go there to win money, of course, but to enter a mental state where they don't have to think at all, a kind of oasis for the brain as well. This is precisely the psychological environment that allows dependency to take root. In addition, its accessibility is another factor that stands out globally. In most countries, gambling venues like casinos are places, you deliberately go to like special places with dress code and entrance fees. But pachinko is totally different. It's right in front of train stations or along main roads, and you can walk in wearing casuals, even sandals, just 1 hour after work or on the way home from shopping or work. But this ease of access places pachinko directly within everyday life, turning it into a routine rather than a destination. Then came the decisive factor in recent decades: Japan's powerful anime and entertainment culture. Since the 1990s, pachinko machines have evolved dramatically. Collaboration with popular franchises like, Evangelion, AKB48 became the norm. But players don't just drop balls. They watch new animation, footage, and famous theme song play during jackpocket moments. As a result, pachinko attracted an entirely new audience. People who aren't interested in gambling itself, but want to experience the anime and entertainment tied to it. Loneliness, harsh working conditions, easy access, and the power of content. These elements intertwine, turning pachinko into more than just gambling in Japan. It became a mechanism of escape, quietly blending into Japan's everyday scenery. But even an industry so deeply embedded in Japanese society is no longer what it once was. The pachinko industry, long a refuge for loneliness and stress, is now slowly but unmistakably declining. So what exactly is happening to this once might pachinko empire? At one point there were more than 45,000 pachinko parlors across the country, as I told you, but today that number has fallen to around 7,000. The player population has also declined sharply from roughly 30 million at its peak to around 7 million today. Looking at these trends, it's clear that the pachinko is shrinking industry. Several factors lie behind this decline. The easy one is with the rise of smartphone games and social media, of course. Younger generations have shifted towards new form of entertainment, not pachinko anymore. At the same time, stricter government regulations have made it increasingly difficult to produce machines with extremely high gambling entertainment. As these conditions overlap, the pachinko industry as a whole has continued to contract slowly but steadily. Even so, it's unlikely that pachinko will disappear completely. One reason is that the market remains large, while despite its decline, the industry still generates around 10 trillion yen in annual revenue, which is huge. Obviously, as I explained, a sudden withdrawal would result in massive job losses and serious consequences for local economies in Japan. In many rural areas, large pachinko parlors serve as the core of commercial zones, while making them difficult to replace with empty properties. Japan's aging population is another factor supporting pachinko survival. During the daytime, most customers are elderly, and for many of them, pachinko provides both a reason to go out and a place where they can spend time while keeping a comfortable distance from others. For generations unfamiliar with smartphone games, pachinko remains an accessible and easy to understand form of entertainment. In recent years, more foreign tourists have also begun trying pachinko as a uniquely Japanese experience. Parlors have introduced English signage and other measures for inbound visitors, and tourism is gradually becoming a new source of support for the industry. In this way, even as it grows smaller, pachinko continues to adapt, shaped by Japan's aging society, tourism demand, and the cultural tendency to avoid outright bans. Rather than disappearing, pachinko is likely to remain quietly, changing its form while staying embedded in Japanese society. So how do you feel about the reasons pachinko continues to survive in Japan? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comment box below. And also, pachinko is just one example of the contradictions within Japanese society. In the next video, I will explore other hidden systems that exist in Japanese society. Alright, so thanks so much for watching. See you in the next video. Bye.